Um, Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for today's demonstration of how to use the College Source Product Transfer Evaluation System, which you all received an email about the week of the 3rd. This is, just to be candid, this is not the original demonstration that I performed earlier today at 1 o'clock with other participants in a webinar. Unfortunately, that file did not record correctly. And so we are reshooting it with my computer screen. So this is not the live webinar that was performed this afternoon, but it should contain the same content. So with that disclaimer, I'm going to go ahead and get started. You guys all received an email the week of the 3rd or the 4th explaining to you guys what the transfer evaluation system, also called TES, is. So I'm not going to spend too much time explaining that, but I did want to just briefly go over why we have decided to move transfer credit evaluations to this system, mainly because it provides accountability, it provides transparency, it makes the transfer evaluation process much faster, and it helps to answer the questions that surround transfer credit evaluations sometimes, mainly the who, the what, the when, where, why, and how did they make decisions. What were they looking at when they determined that the class was equivalent to a class at Purdue-Fort Wayne? Who made that determinant? And this system is able to track all of that. And like I said, it's much faster because all of the information is organized in one location. So what you'll see in a second here when I log in is how the information is organized, how I get the information that I get, and the resources that are available to transfer evaluators when they're using it. During the webinar, we saved the questions till the end, and we did write the questions down. So at the end of this presentation, I will go over some of the questions that were asked. To start off, I'm going to log into TES. The website itself is fairly short and simple. It's tes.collegesource.com. When you go to the home page, it looks like this. To log into TES, in the top right corner is login. The username, everyone's username was created under their Purdue-Fort Wayne email. So you should have all been given the opportunity to create a password. Is whatever you want to make it. It's not going to be the same as your Purdue-Fort Wayne email unless you decide to make it that. And it's not maintained the same way the Purdue-Fort Wayne login is. So logging into Purdue-Fort Wayne at GoPFW does not automatically sign you into TES. You have to do that separately. But the good news is it doesn't have the same restrictions. You don't have to update it every so often. It doesn't have to have the same types of differentiations inside of it to make it more difficult to learn. It does have some basic requirements, but it's much easier to maintain if you ask me. Once you log into TES, my homepage is different than the traditional homepage, and I would recommend that people who use TES and want to and are only planning on ever using it to answer transfer evaluation questions that are sent to them, they also customize their homepage to match mine. I have my homepage set to take me directly to transfer evaluations that have been answered and sent back to me. Otherwise, the homepage actually looks like this. To customize your homepage, it's not difficult. It's under Manage and then User Preferences. And you don't have to try to scribble all this down and keep up with me. I actually have written notes that can be sent in a follow-up email after this video. This is just for you to see me do. Under Manage and then User Preferences to the right-hand side is Set My Home Page. So anybody who's just using TES to answer transfer evaluations sent to them, if they select Track and then select My Evaluations and then Submit, their home screen will automatically take them to what evaluations they have to work on. So in theory, if there's nothing here, there is nothing that has been assigned to somebody that they need to work on. Otherwise, if your home page is the traditional home page, you need to go to Track and then My Evaluations. Inside My Evaluations, the evaluations are organized by institution. So the institution is listed on the left, and then the number of courses from that institution that need reviewed are to the right. In this case, I have a course sitting in my queue because I sent something to math a little while ago that they have since answered. If I clicked on the play sign right here, it would take me to the course information. So if you were an evaluator, it would list the course that I have sent to you. In my case, it's what's been sent back to me from the evaluator. On the left-hand side is the original class, so MA1030 from the Indiana Institute of Technology, also called Indiana Tech by most of us here in Fort Wayne. My proposed equivalent was Math 153, and what I have here under last action notes was math stating that the course is not equivalent to Math 153. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I send an evaluation real quick and then switch user accounts so that you can see what the user account function looks like from somebody who is only receiving evaluation requests. So I will slow down and back up later to show you how I actually search for an institution. But for now, I'm just going to send something real quick. I type in the institution name first to pull up course information from different places. There's only one, Northwest State Community College. And then I'm going to select a class that I already know an equivalent for. In this case, I'm just going to use math. This has already been answered before by math. Not inside of TES, but before when we were just using emails. So I have an email saying that these two classes are equivalent. To choose who I want to send this to after I've chosen assign evaluation like you just saw me do, I use this drop down right here to choose the person I want to send it to. Names are alphabetical by last name, and then their job title is to the right in parentheses. I've tried to make sure that I started them all off with the subject code of the classes that they review. In this case, I'm just going to send one to my direct supervisor, Associate Registrar Kim De Leon, and then show you what it looks like inside her screen as someone with evaluator rights. If I needed to add a comment for this evaluation, this is where I could add something like if an institution is on quarter hours, this is where I could add a comment like 4 quarter hours is equal to 3 semester credit hours. If I had a syllabus to upload, this is where I could upload the syllabus. Most of the time, if I'm sending classes that are lower level, I don't often have syllabus. There are certain departments on campus that have said that they need syllabus to review most of the classes. And if I have a syllabus, I will always send it, but if I do not, and if I know the department will at least look at the class, but without having the syllabus and consider it, I will send it without the syllabus first. And then because I have no support materials for this evaluation, I'm just going to choose Create Evaluation Task, and it has been sent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this recording real quick. Okay, so Kim's screen is not set to any specific home page. She doesn't use TES very often, but as the Associate Registrar over Transfer Credit and other student records, she has access to TES. So Kim's home screen is the generic home screen. To get to evaluations that have been sent to her, she goes to Track and then My Evaluations. And then once inside My Evaluations, it lists any institutions that have courses that have been assigned to her. So I sent a couple her way just as an experiment so you guys could see this. We're going to go to the Northwest State Community College to answer one. You can see she only has the one course under her for this. So if she chooses the play button next to the institution, it loads the courses that need her attention inside of here. So here's again the original class, the proposed equivalent, and there isn't much history other than the fact that I've sent something her way. So if she chooses this play button, this is where she can actually access information to help her complete the evaluation and carry out the evaluation. For starters, from this screen are the two course descriptions lined up side by side. The units in TES is the same as credits. So this class is worth 3 credits, and over here we can see our class is worth 3 credits. The prerequisite for this class is a remedial math course or a placement exam, placing them in college algebra, and same for hours over here. If there were any co-requisites, those would also be listed near the above prerequisites. If this were a science class where it was a combination of lecture and lab, that information would be included. This class is 3 hours of lecture, 0 hours of lab. But if this were a science class that was a combination of two, this would load both. By choosing the plus sign next to the department name, this actually loads course sequence, which is very important sometimes. I know for some majors that teach the classes in certain sequences. So here is everything so far that's led up to college algebra. Our actual class in question is going to be in red text. So here is the class that we're asking about, and here are the classes that came before it in the sequence, and after it are the classes that follow it. Below that is the catalog that this course description has been pulled from. So this course description is from the 2019-2021 catalog. Down below is course history. So for some reason we needed to compare course descriptions from previous years. This is where we could see the previous course descriptions from other catalogs that are stored inside of TES. So as long as TES has uploaded a catalog to it, it has the course description from that catalog as well. So we can see here's 2019, 2021, 2017, 2019 course description, and then so on and so forth. It looks like their course description goes all the way back to about 2000. And then below this information is the evaluation log, which so far is very short. Once we're done completing an evaluation, you'll see this grow. But so far, it's all it has is the proposed equivalent on my side and who I have assigned this task to. Over here is comments. So if there were an initial comment, like I mentioned before, like trying to state, you know, this institution's on quarter hours, here's how many it is on semester hours, this is where I would add a comment like that or a question. Also available for evaluations, and I know important sometimes, especially for programs that have specific program accreditations. If a person if the user goes to the institution name and then chooses the plus sign, it loads the institution's information that they have about it. And that will include the calendar system, so are they on semesters? It will include their regional accrediting body if they're regionally accredited, and this one is according to this check mark. And if they had any special program accreditations, those are listed down below. This only has the one. The other thing that's accessible from here is by choosing the globe icon. It loads the web page in a separate tab so that you don't have to go searching for the correct Northwest State website. And then by clicking the key icon right here, this is really more transfer credit oriented, I know, but by loading the key icon, it loads the transcript key from Northwest State Community College. You're probably not going to be looking at this very often. I realize this is really something used more by transfer credit evaluators. Maybe somebody who's doing a pre-transfer evaluation. I come from general studies where you did those quite a bit, but I realize not everybody does pre-transfer evaluations. Most people prefer to send those to student success and transitions to be evaluated. But this is where it is at if someone needed to question the grading system to understand why something could or could not transfer. And then last but not least is where someone actually answers the evaluation. So far we've had course description, credits, prerequisites, differentiation between lecture hours and lab hours, sequence, catalog the course description came from, course history, evaluation log. So the last thing on this page is to answer the evaluation. And a person has a couple options available to them when they're answering an evaluation. There's a couple ways to answer an evaluation, and each way causes, each of these ways causes the evaluation to bounce back to the creator. So this is an automatic process as long as you choose one of the following options. You can either choose approve, deny, or need more information. And by choosing any of those three options, once you click complete, it automatically goes back to me and your task is done. So if she, and all of these options except for add/edit course will give you an opportunity to add a comment in case you need to say something specific with what you're doing. So choosing approve, she can add a note if she needs to tell me something specific, and then as long as this check mark, this box is checked, a copy of the email saying an evaluation has been completed would be sent not only to me, but it would also be sent to the person who completed the evaluation, and then choose confirm. That completes the task. If she needed to deny my request because it was incorrect, she can do it two ways. She can either choose deny and then state the correct equivalent in the comments, and that will load in the evaluation log down here. Or she can choose to edit my equivalent herself by going into TES, and then on the right hand side removing the incorrect equivalent. Just make sure that when you go to add the correct one, you have the correct subject code, because it will load all the courses that are underneath that subject code. It's happened before where someone meant to add undistributed and what they selected was ACS undistributed and the class was not an ACS class. So just make sure you have the right subject code. In this case, I'm just going to put back Math 153 because that's what it is. But the subject codes are in alphabetical order. Select Math, and then I'm just going to find Math 153 again and choose Done. The last thing that could also be done by an evaluator is they could choose to reassign it. So say I send this to the department chair, but the department chair doesn't really feel comfortable answering it because it's not really it's not an area that they teach a lot. It's really somebody else within their department. A good example of this is education. I've sent classes before to education, and Dr. Nunez didn't feel comfortable answering some of the classes that were specifically special education oriented, so she would forward my question to somebody else within her department who would then answer. So rather than having to use email, we can use a reassign feature in TES, where as long as a person has been added to TES, using the drop down, we can find the user that we want to actually reassign the task to, the person who is more appropriate for answering the question. And then once we choose who we want to send it to, there's the option to add a note if we need to add a note, and then choose confirm, and this task has now been sent to that new person. But we're not going to do that in this case. But again, as long as that person's been added to TES, we can reassign. So if there is somebody who I should add that's not on TES right now, please let me know and I'm more than happy to add them. I started this whole project off by just adding the department chairs because they are my usual point of contact when asking transfer evaluation questions, but we can add more, and it's very easily done. Especially because with TES we have unlimited user access and user rights. So we can add as many people as we want and we're not going to hit a cap. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and choose approve. And once I choose approve and add a note, and then send confirm, and then choose confirm, I can see the log has grown. From just the initial proposal and then sent to Kim De Leon, we can see the editing that's gone on with this class, and then we can see the final note saying approved. So if you edit a class, you do have to choose approve afterwards. If you edit it, it will not automatically bounce back to me. It has to first, you have to choose approve to make it go back to me. But once you choose approve, if Kim checks her evaluations now, the Northwest State courses are now no longer in her evaluation, so it's done. So this is really nice because this is another thing we've encountered with transfer credit evaluations is people have meant to before answer questions, but because of just having a very busy inbox, which is something we all have an issue with, it's really easy to shuffle the email into a million other emails, and then I don't get answers for a little while, either until someone remembers to go back through their inbox and check to see if they've answered me, or I send a follow-up email to say, hey, I didn't hear from you. Did you get a chance to look at this? So this is much easier to use because this keeps track of everything for us. If there's something in the queue, there's something to work on. If this is empty, there's nothing to do. The person doesn't have any evaluations to answer. But this, in essence, is how a person answers the transfer evaluation questions that are sent to them through TES. And those are the resources that are available to somebody who's trying to answer an evaluation. The program accreditation, the school accreditation, the sequence, the credit hour worth, the prerequisites, all of it's listed in one location rather than having to go hunting through a university's catalog. And that, finding the catalog itself can sometimes be hard. So I'm going to pause this real quick while I log in as myself. Okay, so I've logged back in and the course that Kim answered has now bounced back to me. You can see it sitting in my evaluation flow right here. So now if I go to that course, I just have to go to the institution. I can see here that it's been approved. And then by choosing the play sign, here's where I can go in and create the equivalency for the class. Here's the evaluation log that we looked at a second ago, where we can see everything that's happened so far and who's been involved in the evaluation. So this helps to answer that question about who answered what and when, because here's the day and time that this evaluation was carried out, and here's the username of the person tied to it. So to actually create the equivalency and store it in TES, I use the drop down and choose Create Equivalency and Close. I always set the begin date for the equivalency to the day that I'm creating it in TES, just so that if we have previously awarded the class differently to somebody else, there's an explanation for why it was awarded differently before compared to how it is now. Also, if I needed to add a public note, something for students to see to understand conditions for how the class will transfer, this is where I could add a public note. Again, the quarter hour thing to explain how quarter hours convert, or if this class needed to be taken along with something else to transfer, this is where I could add that note. But I don't have any notes like that in this case, so I'm just going to choose Submit. And now, if I go back to my queue, the class is out of my queue as well. And that's how equivalencies are created inside of TES. Now I just want to show you how users can check evaluations that have been carried out inside of TES. I realize this is something academic advisors might need to do if they're working with a student and they're trying to check to see how equivalents were awarded to students, and I realize that this is also something departments may do from time to time if they've had a change in who their chair was and the new chair isn't sure about the equivalency that was established previously. So to search for an equivalent, a course equivalency history, what you need to do is you need to find the course first in TES. There are two ways to search for a course in TES. You can either choose search up here and then choose course finder, or you can choose search right here. They'll both get you to the same place for searching. Again, the header is the institution, so you have to first locate the institution. I'm going to use Grace College as our example. I've got U.S. schools defaulted as my option. If I chose non-U.S. schools, it would show me only institutions that match the name Grace College with addresses outside of the U.S. And if I chose all, it would load everything Grace College, U.S. or outside of the U.S. But I've only handled domestic credit. So in this case, we're only looking at U.S. schools. People receiving evaluation requests can also expect to receive international evaluations through TES as well. So I'm going to locate Grace College. There are a couple Grace Colleges, so make sure to double check the city and the state of the institution in question before you move forward. And then before I show you how to look at evaluation history, I just want to show one other thing that I think is very important to people. There is, if anyone's ever tried to locate a catalog from a university website, it's not always easy. It's buried sometimes, and it takes a lot of clicking to locate it. TES kind of helps solve that problem. Any catalogs they've uploaded are actually just down here, and then you can choose the catalog year that you want to take a look at. So in this case, I'll try this one, Grace College Seminary from 2018-2019. When I choose select, my pop-up blocker is already turned off to accept anything from TES in a separate window, but if you've not used the catalog select option in TES before, your pop-up blocker is actually going to stop it from loading. So you'll either have to adjust your pop-up blocker to let you accept pop-ups from TES, or you're going to have to to check up here every time to view the catalog load in a separate window. It always loads in a separate window, and what's really nice about using the catalogs inside of TES rather than going right to the website and trying to find it is that it has the content outlined if the catalog has been structured in that way. So basic front page, introduction to Grace College, their undergraduate curriculum, and their course descriptions. The other nice thing about using the catalog inside of TES is it has search features. So if I want to try and search for keywords inside of TES in their catalog, I can do that, and it will load any results it can find that match the keywords I'm searching for. And I used a subject code, so it loaded a lot of options. And I can actually print this catalog if I wanted to, but it would be a very long, very, very long print. So I'm just going to go back to the main page now. So that, I think, is much easier for some of us who reference catalogs because we have to worry about if that class is major specific or not. That's a big deal sometimes with chemistry when they're trying to determine if a class is Chem 115 or Chem 111. So there are two ways to look up a course to see if it has an evaluation history. The first way is to just use this middle option, type in a class code, and by typing in the class code, if I click search, it's going to find anything that matches that class code I enter. If I were to enter course title, I would want to type in a title of a course I'm trying to find, and it would load anything matching that title. So if I do general chemistry or something that's a pretty common name, it's going to load everything that matches the title general chemistry. And as you can see, it's not only loading general chemistry 1 and 2, it's loading general chemistry 1 and 2 from previous catalog years as well. While if I use the course code, which is what I would recommend for accuracy, it's going to load anything that matches that course catalog. It's not going to be as expansive, but what you can see is it's still loaded previous catalog years that also match that course code. So you can view one course at a time if you just want to view one course catalog, or you can load multiple course catalog. You can load multiple course descriptions at one time. I would recommend if you're trying to find an evaluation history, evaluations are tied specifically to the catalog term that the course description was reviewed from. So this course description is from 2018-2019. Here's the evaluation history carried out with it, while if I went further back to something from 2013-2014, the course description, this is not the course description we use to carry out the evaluation. Here is where you can see the equivalency history and the evaluation history. They're slightly different. Equivalency history is only going to show you when an equivalency was created inside of TES and the classes with the equivalent. So here on the left hand side is the original class, Chem 1010, and its lab. And on the right hand side, it's equivalent to Chem 104, and it was created on 7/25/2019 with a public note. while the evaluation history is going to not only include the equivalency that was established, but it's also going to include the evaluation log. So you can see that I actually sent this to Ron Friedman in the middle of July. I actually proposed it as being equivalent to Chem 111. He sent me back that he needed the syllabus to answer, to be able to answer this, and I uploaded the syllabus. Those syllabus are right here underneath the course description, and that is where they will always be. The really nice thing about TES is it stores this evaluation history. So this will be here later if we ever needed to go back and try to understand what went on with this evaluation, and the syllabus is going to be tied to this history. So when I clicked that little file icon, it loaded the attachment down below, and the syllabus will load in the second page. So this helps in the future if we're trying to understand what syllabus was submitted. Was it a really brief syllabus that we find on university web pages sometimes, or was it the student's full course syllabus? So this is very nice. This solves the problem of when we receive answers, the history of that entire evaluation is locked inside my email, or it's locked inside the email of the person answering me. This is, as long as a person has the right user rights inside of TES, they'll be able to see the evaluation history. So anybody who has the ability to answer evaluations sent to them can see these evaluation histories. And I've also added all of the DAC advisors as being able to view evaluation histories as well. Right now I've just limited it to the DAC members. Maybe in the future when we get used to TES more, we'll be able to add more people, but I've started out with a small group just for starters. But this, with this being available to the DAC advisors, if they have a student in the future who brings this class in, wants to question why they were awarded Chemistry 104 instead of 111, a DAC advisor could log into TES and see that an evaluation was carried out, that syllabus were reviewed, and that this is how we reached our decision. In comparison, and I'll show you a class that's not been reviewed inside of TES before so that you can see what that looks like. Let's use Chem again. Choosing something that has not been reviewed inside of TES before. If I were to load the course, when I load the course description, here is the course description, but there's no equivalency history and there's no evaluation history. So if I've awarded an equivalent before, but we have no history of it inside of TES, it either means that the communication to determine the equivalency was carried out in email, or maybe it wasn't even, maybe even chemistry wasn't consulted. Being able to check TES and see that there's no evaluation history would tell a person checking this that maybe we could revisit this inside of TES and try to see if there's a different outcome possible. So this is what it looks like when no evaluation has been carried out inside of TES before. So those are the two basics about TES that I wanted to make sure everyone took away from learning about TES today: how to answer an evaluation and how to check an evaluation history. There are just a couple other side things I want to show people about TES. Some of them we aren't actively using at the time, but their capabilities. Once we get comfortable with using its evaluation feature, I think there are other ways we can expand its uses. Number one, like I mentioned before when I was referencing the ability to reassign an evaluation task to somebody, there we do not have a limit on user licenses for TES. So we have a subscription, so we can add as many people to TES as we want. The other nice thing about using TES is that the user's rights can be customized. So if we have one person where we just want them to have the ability to log into TES and look for a course description, we can set a person's user rights to just be that. While if we want someone to have the ability to answer evaluations sent, we can create their user rights to be that. At this time, the only people who have the ability to create equivalencies inside of TES are the same people who have the abilities to create equivalencies in our Banner equivalency database, and that is myself, International Credit Articulations, and that's it. And that is how we will maintain the ability to add equivalencies, is it will match what's in Banner. So the second thing I wanted to show you guys is how we can use TES to perform routine checks of equivalencies that we have stored. So the questions come up before when an equivalency has been awarded, why did you award that? And then when I check the date of an equivalency and when it was created in Banner, it is sometimes very old, or it can be very, very new. But we don't yet have a routine for when we are revisiting equivalencies and checking to see if things have changed. And if we are doing it, it's very manual. We are checking the equivalency from when it was the course description from when it was created to now, to see if there's changes. And TES actually does that for us. Under search, there is a course change report. I'll use Ivy Tech because that's an institution we get a lot of transfer credit from. You select the institution that you want to check for course changes from, and then you choose the two catalogs that you want to compare for changes. So I'll use 2018 and then I'll use 2015. And when I run the compare option, what it's going to do is it's going to load any courses that have changed between the two catalog terms that have been specified, 2015 and 2016. It loads any courses that have had a change to their course in some way, and then it will even tell us what has changed about them. So was it the title that changed? Was it the description, the prerequisite, the lecture hours, lab hours, and do we have an equivalency stored in TES about this class? So if we look at Financial Accounting 101 between the 2 years, the description from 2015 to 2016 was much shorter than the most recent course description added. The lecture hours, before the catalog didn't specify lecture hours, and now it did. The actual class equivalent credit hours hasn't really changed, but wording has been added for prerequisites. And the nice thing is that this software tells us all of the changes. You can see how it highlighted exactly what changed between the two. Sometimes it's not actually anything alarming, other than just they changed their wording. Other times it is something to actually it's something that may need to be looked at in more detail. But this is able to detect those changes for us, so we don't have to have a person manually going through and looking for changes. This tells us if a change has occurred and what that change was. So in the future, I hope we can establish a routine time that we want to reevaluate an equivalency every how often do we want to revisit our equivalencies. I hope we can establish something like this, and then this can help us do that. The other thing that we can do with TES is use it to do proactive equivalency searches. So this has the ability to check for similar titles by using Equivalency Explorer. There's a couple ways we can look for equivalencies. We can either check how other institutions are using classes, our classes that they've stored inside of TES. So it looks like, for example, the City Colleges of Chicago has about 5 of our classes stored as equivalent to theirs. So they consider our Phil 1100 equivalent to their Phil 106. The other way we can search for equivalencies is using similar title match. What it'll do is you choose the institution, and it will compare. It will look for like titles between the two and suggest them. And then there are other ways as well, but this could potentially someday be a proactive equivalency tool for us. And then lastly, the other feature that I think is very useful for TES is that it has a custom list report. So I can create my own reports of what I want to hone in on. Mostly I've used it in the past for athletic students who want to transfer to our institution. They come with a very specific list of classes that they're transferring that they need to know about. So in the past, when I've been contacted with students who want to transfer that are athletics, I use this to load all of the classes that they've taken and plan to transfer to Purdue-Fort Wayne. And then if there are any stored equivalents inside of TES from that institution, I can use EQ Audit and it will load any equivalencies that are stored inside of TES for that institution. Any equivalencies that are stored between those two classes load on the right. If there weren't any equivalencies, this would be blank. And then what's nice is this report can actually be exported. And it loaded another page, but you can see here's the original course, the grade the student earned in it, the equivalent at Purdue-Fort Wayne, and the date that the equivalency started for. I've also used the custom report ability to just look for specific courses from certain institutions. IUPUI, Heron School of Art, these are courses taken at IUPUI that I wanted to check on equivalencies for. So this is where I could create my own list of classes that I specifically need to know about. But this is very helpful when you're trying to handle a certain project or help a very specific student. Lastly, I just want to show you the public-facing web page. At this time, the public-facing web page is not released and well-known. It's not something that we're communicating to students about yet because it's not ready. It hasn't been reviewed by marketing to give them a chance to make suggestions for word changes or things that should be added to make the message more clear. But it's something that our staff at this time could use because it is much more easily referenced than the Banner equivalency database. The only issue is at this time not all of our equivalencies in TES are the same things that we have in Banner. Our Banner equivalency database goes back 17 years. It has over 300,000 equivalencies stored inside of it. This does not have nearly that many. So in the future, what I hope we can do is complete a file upload that would load those equivalencies from our Banner into this. But at this time, what's inside of here is just what's been established through the workflow and what's been added by hand. So to give you a preview though of what it looks like, it's organized by institution name. You can either search for the institution, you can use the alphabet to help you find the institution that you are looking for transfer credit information from, or you can go through the list. I'm going to focus on Goshen College. There aren't a lot of courses inside of Goshen College because we've only run about 2 classes through TES workflow to establish equivalencies. And what we have here is just their general chemistry 1 and 2, which is listed as equivalent to undistributed. If I choose the play button, it'll show me details about the equivalency if there are any. You can see here when the equivalency was started, and then this check mark means there's a note. So what we have here is a note saying that syllabus is required for it to look into it being a possible equivalent. That's usually a good hint that I have tried to get a syllabus for that class and I was unsuccessful, so I had to change the class to undistributed until I got a syllabus to send to chemistry. And if we were to check the evaluation history, that is the case with this particular class. I'll show it to you just so you can see it. General chemistry. Here's the evaluation history for that class. Down below I sent this off to Ron Friedman, who noticed that its class description was the same as its second general chemistry class description, so he asked for a syllabus and I was unable to get one. So I had to close the equivalency history at this time. But this public-facing webpage helps provide answers to students and advisors sometimes because it tells them the class is undistributed because we don't have a syllabus. Other examples of notes you might see could be If the class is a upper level class, that usually comes with the field experience. When we tested this when we tested TES out with the focus group, and I was sending course descriptions to Meg Underwood, who at the time was in education, she usually would answer back with notes like the class is upper level, equivalents are awarded more on a case-by-case basis, and students need to talk to their academic department before an answer can be given. So that's a good example of how the note feature might be utilized. It's also been utilized in the past when a student sent a class in with a syllabus and they wanted the class to be Math 153, Math reviewed it, it turned out it was actually more equivalent to Math 111. So I included a note saying that we had looked at a syllabus in July of 2019 to kind of communicate to students that we had already reviewed this class. It really was Math 111, it wasn't Math 153. But the notes can be used in multiple ways. Mainly the suggestion is use it how you would need to use it to communicate to students any type of clarification for why a class is processed the way that it is. Lastly, what I wanted to show you about this is that when you're searching for a class and you're trying to find a equivalent, what's really nice about it is that unlike Banner, when you're searching for a class, you have to know exactly what the transferring class is. While in this one, you can either search by the transfer course or you can search by the equivalent at Purdue Fort Wayne. This lets you search by that option, lets you search by the equivalent, which is, I think, a really great feature. The other thing that's really nice about using this public-facing database is that it has the ability for you to focus on only the classes you want to know about. A student's not usually going to be concerned with how everything transfers from the institution. They have specific classes they want to ask about. So by using these checkboxes over here, a student can select just the courses that they are interested in knowing about and then choose add or view to my list. And by doing that, it creates a list of only the classes they're interested in learning about. And then from here, the message can either be, this list can either be emailed or it can be exported to an Excel file. And when that happens, it exports including the original course information, the equivalent, and any comments that have been added for that equivalent. So this is much more student friendly. This is something that an academic department can use and reference to provide a student with a resource so that when they go somewhere like Ivy Tech to try and take an algebra class, or Oakmont Community College because they're going home to take classes over the summer, they can create a list that's customized to what they're interested in, and they'll be able to reference it. So that's the public-facing database. Now, like I said, this is not actually the live webinar because unfortunately we had a saving issue. But I did write down the questions that I had received in the webinar, and I'm going to go over them in this demonstration because they were good questions. First of all, one person had asked if I, as the evaluation creator, and myself and Marla are the only two people who have the ability to create evaluation tasks and tests. That's tied to equivalency creator powers. So we are the only two who can send evaluation requests. But if Marla or I send an evaluation request to an academic department, is every single user inside of TES going to get an email saying that an evaluation task has been created? And the answer to that is no. Only the person who I select as my recipient of the evaluation task is going to get an email. I don't think I used this, I don't think I even mentioned this, and I apologize. People who are sent evaluation tasks will receive an email at the beginning telling them that something has been created. So if anyone's familiar with success factors, you can think of it kind of like success factors when somebody submits at an hourly change or time off, their supervisor receives an email telling them somebody who they manage has submitted a request and to log into SuccessFactors and look at it. That's what TES does here as well. Whenever an evaluation task has been created, they will receive an email telling them an evaluation has been assigned to them and to please sign in and look at it. So, and that email is only sent to the person who the evaluation task was sent to. The other question that we had received was how will the transfer credit processors know to re-review equivalencies every so often, or do academic departments themselves need to monitor how often that's being done? At this time, we don't have a routine or a plan for how often to reevaluate equivalencies that are stored. That's something that we are going to be discussing with Purdue West Lafayette in about a week from now, but at this time we don't have a plan for that. So my general rule of thumb is when I go into the Banner equivalency database and see an equivalency is over 10 years old, I am asking. Especially when it's an upper level class or a major specific class like education, business, engineering, so on and so forth, because those programs have special program accreditations they're trying to keep up, and incorrect equivalencies can jeopardize them, and I realize that. But if I see something that is over 10 years old, I'm asking, but it is not actually a general practice or rule or anything that's been agreed upon by all the colleges across campus. So I would recommend that the academic departments monitor the equivalencies to see if something needs to change or needs to be updated. Second to last, are all of the equivalencies from the Indiana Core Transfer Library stored inside of TES? So if a person looked up an Indiana Core Transfer Library institution like Ball State, and they wanted to know about they wanted to check on the Accounting 1 class, which is part of the Indiana Core Transfer Library, is that stored inside of TES? In this case it was. My predecessor before me did go through and add all of the equivalencies from the Core Transfer Library to TES, but that was all hand entered, and to avoid possibility for error with information getting entered twice, I have not added by hand the equivalencies that have changed since then. I'd prefer to rely on a data file at a later date and load everything from Banner into this so that the information is only being added once and there's no error. So at this time, no, not all of the Indiana Core Transfer Library courses are inside of TES. The last question that we had received during the webinar was somebody who had said, if I'm only ever planning on using TES to look for evaluation history, what should I set my homepage to be? That would probably be the course finder option, just because if they choose Course Finder, it will automatically take them to the page where they start searching for the institution. So I would recommend Manage, User Preferences, and then Course Finder, so that you automatically start your home page by searching for the institution. Then you just have to locate the institution, locate the course, and check to see if there has been an evaluation in history. So that was a recreation of the webinar. Again, I'm sorry we had a recording error. We really did try to fix it and salvage the original file, but it just wasn't possible, so we had to retape it. The main thing I want to, I hope everyone took away from all of this, is that TES is not a scary system to learn. From everybody who's been using it so far, including chemistry and public policy, which are two of our oldest users inside of TES. Both users have said that the system was extremely easy to learn. It took them less than 5 minutes to figure out how to use it. The evaluations themselves were very easy to conduct and carry out because the course descriptions were provided right there for them. If they needed a reference sequence, they didn't have to go searching for it inside the course within the institution's webpage. That was also right at their fingertips. So I hope that this has helped clear up any concern about using a brand new system like this. I'm definitely available for any questions or follow-up that anybody has. I have created handwritten instructions for how to use this as well. There's 2 copies, one with pictures, one without, for people who have a preference. Additionally, all of the original focus group members from the group that I mentioned earlier in this conversation have also volunteered to help answer questions within their own college. So from business, that's Buck Jordan. He helped complete he was part of the original focus group, testing out what it was like to use TES, trying to think like someone, like a faculty member within his own department would, and answer questions like they would. Within the College of Professional Studies, that's Leslie Clark, and she is also someone who receives PPOL questions and uses it regularly. Within COAS, that's going to be Ron Friedman. Mike Black was originally part of the focus group, but he's since changed positions. Unfortunately, ETCS's representative, Carolyn Smith, has also changed jobs, and she's no longer there, but I'm available for any questions people have. And then lastly, within VPA, Carla Yakler was part of the original focus group and has agreed to answer any questions people have. So please don't hesitate to reach out to someone within your own college if that's easier, but I'm also very willing and ready to answer questions people have as well. So that is how to use TES in a nutshell. And thank you everyone for agreeing to use this system. Thank you to the deans for supporting this. I'm really excited to see how this can help improve transfer credit in the future by providing the transparency we've been missing from this process, and also expand its use as we get more comfortable with it. So have a great night, everyone. Bye.